Hey there, Brendan from Blue Light, and for those of you who haven't seen one of my videos before, over the past 5 or 6 years I've been coaching and supporting people to achieve their dream career in the police. Probably now getting in excess of over 3,000 people have had that support, and with a success rate of around 97% for things like coaching people for the assessment centre. That's a lot of police officers who've come through Blue Light, so something I'm really pleased about. But is it that easy to join the police? Okay, a 97% success rate at the assessment centre sounds really good. And if that was all there was to joining the police, it would be really easy. But it isn't, folks. So today I'm going to talk to you about how to increase your chances in the journey called the police recruitment process. So it all starts off with what's just happened today, where the Leicestershire Constabulary have just announced that over the next year they're going to recruit 80 constables. Now, for a force the size of Leicestershire, that's quite a sizable commitment. But remember, it's not all at once. It's being spread over a year, and it could actually be longer than a year based on my experience. So, how does it all start? Well, there's quite a good, I'll put a link to it as well below, whether you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube. It's quite a good recruitment page from Leicestershire. I'm really impressed with the Chief Constable, his first video, especially the bit where he talks about how he applied for Leicestershire Constabulary and was failed when he initially applied because of his colour blindness. So he went to West Midlands Police and now he's back as a Chief Constable. I love the little line, I'd love to find the person who failed me. And there's another really good video on there about Leicestershire Constabulary's approach to community. So some really interesting stuff going on there. I'm really quite impressed with Simon Cole, the Chief Constable, and I'm impressed with Leicestershire as a force. So that's the first stage. They've got to impress you and catch your attention. So from here you'll apply, and there's an application form to complete. I've not taken a look at what Leicestershire's is like, but a lot of forces now are steering away from the traditional competency type application form where you're given about 80 words to answer a question about your motivation for wanting to join. 80 words, come on, it's just not enough. So a lot of forces have recognised that, and forces like Greater Manchester Police now just ask 2 questions. GMP asks, the first question is, what's your motivation for wanting to be a police officer? And they expect up to 500 words. Secondly, what is it you've done to help support the communities of Greater Manchester? Up to 500 words. So you're being measured against your answers to the questions, which are now becoming increasingly values-based, which is good news, I think, for the police. For years, they've been assessing people based on the competencies and hoping for the best in terms of someone's values. The wrong way round, I believe. You should be assessing someone's values, determining whether they're the right sort of person, assessing some of their ability to do things like organise and plan, make difficult decisions, work with other people, but assess that secondary to the values. The values come first, and that's what a lot of forces are doing now. And these make for really hard questions to answer. So that's the first stage, and this is how a lot of forces will screen people out. So if you've made far too many grammatical or spelling errors, it demonstrates a sloppy approach from you. And there's no excuse really, because Microsoft Word has something called spell checker on it. But the amount of application forms I've seen that people have submitted to me that have got some really shoddy, poor grammatical and spelling mistakes on them, well, it's no surprise that people are failing on that. So you could have a really good application form with really good answers on it, but if you've got too many errors, then it will fail you. If it asks for 300 words in the answer and you give 150, you're likely to fail as well. They expect you to use all of your word count. If they ask for something specifically, give me a specific example of, and you go on to give an answer about how generically you behave in a certain way, then you've not answered the question, so you're going to fail no matter how good your answer is. So there's something there about making sure you answer the question, making sure that you pay attention to detail, and making sure that you use the full word count that you've been given. Because if you only use 150 words when you're allowed 300, to me that demonstrates that you're just not committed enough, you're just not bothered enough to think about the other 150 words and provide that level of detail that's going to enable you to score well to get through to the next stage. So in many forces, I've heard recently of one force that only took about 10% of its applicants through to the next stage. 10%. That's a lot of people being screened out. I've also heard of another force, so Gloucestershire have done this just recently, and Durham, where they wrote to people to tell them that their application was not of a sufficient high standard. Durham wanted an A for every one of the answers. So that's a really tough challenge there to make sure you get all A's. So just recently, Gloucestershire have just written to some of their candidates to say, although you didn't get through to the next stage a couple of months earlier, we'd now like to invite you to assessment centre. So what this means is that they've not recruited the right or sufficient calibre of individuals, and so they're now going to their backup list, which is those people who are borderline fails application form stage. So if you get through all of that, then you'll be invited to an assessment centre. Some forces do an interview before the assessment centre, but the way I'll do this is the typical approach, bearing in mind that some forces differ. Particularly the Metropolitan Police, who don't have a secondary interview at all. They just have the assessment centre, or day one as they call it in the Met. And they are currently piloting a new approach to the assessment centre in conjunction with the College of Policing. So that's subject of a completely different video and completely different guidance. So you go to the assessment centre. Now the reason why they're changing it is because that assessment centre has existed for, it's got to be over a decade now. College of Policing's own evaluation of it is it's not fit for purpose, and it really isn't, folks. It's a very formulaic game-playing approach to demonstrating your ability to be a police officer, which is why they've got to change it, because it just doesn't fit in today's needs that forces have. But it is what it is, and it exists still, and it's statutory. So forces, all Home Office forces, have to put people through the College of Policing Assessment Centre. So often referred to as SEARCH, SEARCH in big letters. Don't ask me what that stands for, I can't remember. But the SEARCH Assessment Centre is your next stage. Comprised of interviews, written exercise, psychometric exercise, which is verbal reasoning and maths, and the role plays. It's the role plays that often freak people out, because they'll ask you to act naturally, and then they will ask you to role play a customer services officer at an imaginary shopping centre. Oh yeah, they also say just be yourself. Just be yourself, but role play a customer services officer. No, I don't get that neither. Act naturally. Well, the role players have about 15 lines. They stick to them. They can't ad-lib, and their behaviour is as wooden as anything. So no emotions, no nothing, and you've got 5 minutes prep, 5 minutes role play. It does not reflect the real world at all. So that's why they've had to change it. Now, that assessment centre only really assesses your competence, and in a way that's not really befitting of the needs of the police forces, the 43 Home Office police forces. So that's why they're changing it, and that's also why police forces also have a final interview. Now, here's the thing. Leicestershire Constabulary are going to recruit 80 over the next year. They might be doing that in batches, so the first recruitment wave might be looking to recruit 40, and the second recruitment wave later on this year might be looking to recruit another 40. So for that first 40, they may say get 4,000 applications. If they then drill that down to inviting, let's say optimistically, 500 to an assessment centre, then clearly they can't afford to have everyone pass. So the pass rate there, let's just see, probably those people get over 50% based on College of Policing data. So we're reducing it from about 500 to say around 200 people, maybe 250 that pass and get through to the next stage. But they've only got a capability to run 100 interviews. So 40 places, 100 interviews, and 250 people have got through to the assessment centre. So although they will say that the pass mark is 50%, it's not. The pass mark may well be a lot higher, and it all depends on supply and demand. So I have known one force only put people through to the next stage if they've got 68%. 68% at assessment centre. Now, talking to those in HR and those who are involved in recruitment, at the moment many forces are using the high 50s, low 60s as a barrier before you get to interview. So that's why there's a real need to perform exceptionally at the assessment centre, not just perform in an average way. You've got to completely nail it. From there, you'll be invited to a final interview, and the reason why they won't have capability to do more than, let's say, 100 is because they need to use operational inspectors, chief inspectors, and sometimes sergeants to run them. The reason why they do that is because they're aware that the assessment centre is very formulaic. I mean, I could coach my 10-year-old daughter to pass the assessment centre, so it's not really a good test of whether you're going to be a good police officer. So no matter what questions they ask, and every force in the country, by the way, runs their interviews in completely different ways. And on top of that, they change like the wind. So recently, Gwent Police, for example, asked you to do a presentation on the challenges the force is facing and how you're going to support the force in meeting those challenges. 10-minute presentation. They've now dropped that. I think it's because it was an IT nightmare, because you had to submit your presentation to them a week before. Now they just have an interview, but I'm quite sure that might be one of the questions they ask anyway, because if it's important previously, it's important now. Quite a few forces will ask you that question, by the way. GMP asks that question. What are the challenges for this force, and how are you going to help support the force in meeting those challenges? And I think it's a fair question to ask. So we go to this interview and we've no idea what to expect. So what I prepare my clients for is just about everything. So competency related questions, values questions, motivation questions, challenges for the force, challenges for you, what have you done to prepare and research for the role, a whole wide range of preparation to ensure that you can meet just about any question that is asked of you. Because at this point as well, you need to get a high score. 100 people being interviewed. If 60 reach the desired score, and there's only 40 places, well, we've got to do something else to whittle down the numbers. Now, those numbers may further get whittled down by the physical. The amount of people I see who are unfit, who are in the recruitment process, frankly, amazes me. You are going to get your BMI measured, your body mass index measured, and if it is above a certain number, you are not going to get past that stage. So you'll put all of that effort and time into something, and you won't get through because of your BMI. Or you might not get through because you've not been out on the streets running. So preparation to join the police for me back in the 80s wasn't just preparation for the various stages of assessment. There were 6 stages, by the way, when I joined, a total of 6 days of various assessments, 3 days and 2 nights of those in the Welsh Mountains. They took it seriously, Cheshire Constabulary, back in the 80s. But the other thing they took seriously was commitment. So what they said to you is every time you arrive at the Force Training Centre for each part of the assessment, we're going to put you through the fitness test. And if you don't improve, we're going to send you home straight away. And they did. When people didn't improve, if they didn't have a doctor's note to demonstrate why they had not improved, then they sent them home straight away. Their rationale behind that, clearly not committed. So if it was borderline a second or 2 on the run, they didn't send you home for that. But if you were like 10 minutes longer on your run, you couldn't do as many burpees in a minute, you couldn't do as many press-ups in a minute, just sent you home. Clearly not committed. Now the same goes, it might be news that you don't want to hear, folks, for some of you. Get yourself fit, get yourself running 2 or 3 times a week, run a mile, mile and a half, 2 or 3 times a week, get yourself used to it. Download the bleep test from the interweb there, and go out on the field and practice it, and practice it, and practice it, and practice it, and watch the videos that forces like West Midlands have put out to show you what the rules of the fitness test are. Make sure you're medically fit. Make sure you're not going to fail the drugs test. So if you've been dabbling in the past, they'll find out and they'll fail you. Make sure that you comply with all the conditions such as no CCJs, points on your licence, cautions, convictions, things like that. They're not necessarily a bar, but you need to be open about all of them and make sure they all go on your application form. And start warming up your references as well, because that can hold you back. If your references are written to and they don't reply, that will hold back your application, and the force will not pester your references to answer the reference request. So that, all of that, and the medical as well, where sometimes people find out they've got medical conditions they didn't know about, might whittle the numbers down from 60 to 50. But they've still got to decide which out of those 50 are going to go through to the next stage. How are they going to do that? Well, they're going to look at your assessment centre and your interview score and put the top 40 through. Sounds brutal, but that's the way it is. If there's only 40 places, that's the only way they can determine who goes through and who doesn't. So there you go, folks. Might be a little bit depressing for some of you there, thinking, oh my goodness, there's so much to it. But why not? It's the best job in the world. It's one of the most honourable positions in society. And you're given an opportunity to do amazing things in communities. You can do amazing good as a police officer and really seriously make a difference, a sort of difference that you can be proud of forever. So I'm really proud of some of the things, many of the things I did in communities as a neighbourhood inspector. I'm really proud of some of the things I did in special branch, on response, working as a detective, even my time back in training. And the training of trainers and some of the work I did nationally around that. Very proud of the things I've done and achieved. It's an amazing job, so why shouldn't they make it difficult for you? If anything, it's probably too easy at the moment. So it's going to be challenging, folks, but step by step we can help you through it. I'm not going to provide the answers, that would be unethical, but I will provide the coaching to help support you and prepare you for each stage of the process. So if you'd like to join a lot of like-minded people who are also applying to the police, well, it's my secret Facebook group. It's secret so that your employers and other friends don't necessarily know that you want to apply for the police. The only people who can find it are its members. You can't find this group unless you're invited to it. So link below on how to join that group. Over 3,500 people now. By my guesstimate, in a couple of months' time, it's going to be over 4,000. Just imagine if all of them get in. Wow. So it's a really great group, very supportive and very ethical as well in how individuals behave in it. Shameless plug as well, various paid services such as assessment centre seminars, and tonight I'm running a final interview webinar, but it's not advertised anywhere. It's only for individuals who are part of my Facebook support group. And it's full anyway. It's full. It filled very, very quickly. So very popular, things like that. So that's all the type of support that I can provide. A bit of a longish video this, but hopefully it's helped you if you're thinking about joining the police. You've got a lot of research ahead of you, a lot of preparation, but boy, it's worth it. What a great job. Best job in the world, is to say. Best job in the world. So I wish you every success on your journey, whether you secure any of my services or whether you watch all my free stuff on YouTube and Facebook, or you just join a Facebook group and you follow the guidance and support there. Whichever way, if you reach your destination, I'm more than pleased for you, more than happy for you. It's what I do. It's what I love to do now. I'm retired from the police. Retired? I've never been so busy. Do a load of other stuff as well outside of police recruitment. So I work with police forces, councils, and also part of a big European project looking at community engagement and problem solving. So plenty to do post-retirement. What a great job. Even gives you a great things to do once you've retired. So I'll see you all soon. And if you've got any questions or anything you want to check out with me, post it in the comments box below and I'll be back in touch with you as soon as I can. If you're watching this on YouTube, somewhere up there, or is it somewhere up there? There's a little subscribe button. Please press it, and by the magic of YouTube, every time I publish another video, it will drop into your inbox. And if you're watching this on Facebook, please do like away. Facebook likes, and I like people who like my likes or something like that. Anyway, if you got to the end of this, good on you. 18 minutes. I hope it was 18 minutes been valuable for your future. Speak to you very soon. Bye-bye.